As everyone with inflammatory bowel disease knows, the severity of the illness is more or less when it comes to different people. I had a very severe case of ulcerative colitis, and to prove it, I'm going to show you my colonoscopy diagnosis, my blood labs from my hospital stay, my discharge summaries, and photos of intense weight loss. Now, I know that several of you have suffered far worse than I ever have, and I'm not trying to minimize your suffering by saying that I had a severe case of ulcerative colitis. What I'm trying to do is prove that you can have a severe case of ulcerative colitis and still be able to heal, and still be able to prevent further and longer suffering. My symptoms started in high school when I was 16, and I just completely pooped my pants in the middle of a grocery store. From then on, I had on and off loose stool, diarrhea, and the occasional hemorrhoids for the next year. Then when I turned 17, I started passing blood in just about every bowel movement. They started to get more and more urgent, causing me to wake up in the middle of the night and sprint to the toilet. The bowel movements became very painful and would leave me feeling pretty lightheaded. I had a reprieve my senior year, didn't have really any problems, but then when I started my freshman year of college playing football at Wheaton College, everything exploded, like literally. I started having accidents walking to class in the dorm hallways, and I mean horrific accidents. I couldn't leave my dorm without pooping myself. I sit all day in my dorm on the toilet trying to make sure I got everything out of my system before I went to football practice. And then my bowel movements changed from passing some stool and mostly blood to almost only blood, anywhere between 10 and 12 times a day. I started filling the bowl of the toilet completely with blood. This is a picture I took with my little flip phone after I had a particularly huge loss of blood, so that I could send it to my parents and tell them that I really need to go see a doctor. I don't know if you can tell by the photo, but when I would pass this amount of blood, it looked like there were bloody tissue clots that I was passing with it, as if it was a giant scab that was forming inside before I passed it. After 3 days of passing this amount of blood, I went and had a colonoscopy done, and I was diagnosed with severe ulcerative colitis. And then after that, they just sent me home with some prednisone, and for some reason I thought it was gonna all be okay, and that I'd just be manageable, wouldn't really be an issue, and it would go away. Well, a week later, I passed so much blood in the toilet that I couldn't even stand up, and I had to have a teammate drive me to the emergency room. When I showed up to the emergency room, they did some blood tests, and they found out that I had a hemoglobin level of a 6.8, and the normal range is somewhere around a 14. So that basically meant that I had like half the amount of blood that a normal person should have in their system. That's how much blood I had lost. So the doctors hooked me up to very high doses of intravenous corticosteroids to try and stop the bleeding. Otherwise, they said they were gonna have to cut my colon out. I stayed at the hospital DuPage up in Illinois for 7 days before my parents got upset because they thought the doctors weren't doing enough to help me. So they checked me out against doctors' recommendations and flew me home to Texas. And immediately, they rushed me to the hospital in College Station, and they hooked me back up to steroids and put me on a clear liquid diet, but they couldn't keep my blood level from dropping. So to fight that, they decided they were gonna do a blood transfusion. They gave me a blood transfusion and it just wasn't enough. So they ended up giving me 4. Now, one blood transfusion, so 1 unit of blood, is 525 milliliters, and I had 4 of those. So that basically comes out to 2.1 liters of blood that they had to give me because I was losing that much blood. Thankfully, the steroids started to work, and my bowel movements dropped from 10 to 12 bloody liquid passings to around 8 a day, and with a lot less blood. And the inflammation went down just enough to stop the acute bleeding, and I was able to go home. I was released from the hospital 15 days after I checked into the hospital DuPage in Illinois, and since then I had lost 31 pounds. I went from about 165 pounds to 134-ish, so it's a good bit of weight that I lost. I took the rest of the semester off from school and continued to take all the medications I was prescribed. Prednisone, Lialda, some other stuff I don't really remember, and I wanted to try the biologic medicines like 6-MP and Remicade, but my parents absolutely refused because of all the horrible side effects they can cause. For the next 8 months or so, that's how I existed. Heavily medicated, tons of side effects, and regular flare-ups. I became completely steroid dependent, and anytime I tapered down on prednisone, I flared up again, and I would have to start the cycle over. I had a few bad flare-ups after that, including a bout of E. coli, which really exasperated the ulcerative colitis and put me in my second worst flare besides the hospital stay. I eventually got so tired of being sick. I got tired of steroids, I got tired of being miserable and waiting around for my next flare-up, I got tired of pooping my pants, and I got tired of being a victim. I made it my mission to heal at all costs, and I was not going to stop until I did. It wasn't easy, but God truly blessed me, and He set everything that I needed to heal right into my lap, and all I had to do was follow it. It took over 1.5 years to heal, but I was able to heal fully and completely. And now all I want to do is help others heal as well. Now, something to think about. Some of you have suffered far worse than I did, but let's put that in perspective. Suffering is a combination of the severity of your case and the length of time you have to endure it. My fear is that those of you who have been fighting this for several years and have suffered very greatly will think that because I didn't suffer as long as you did, that I didn't have a very severe case. And that must mean that there is no hope for you to heal because you've had it worse. But the reality is, I had a very severe case. The only difference between you and I is that I found and recklessly pursued a road that allowed me to fully heal. If I hadn't done that, then I would have continued to suffer. I would have continued to flare up, ended up back in the hospital a second, third, or fourth time, and this cycle would have continued for the rest of my life or until I had my colon removed, which has its own host of problems. The point is, I don't want you to believe that your condition is hopeless. If you're still kicking and breathing, then there's always a way to improve your situation, and I fully believe that the majority of people can entirely heal ulcerative colitis.